This is the Fender Player 2 Jaguar. And when these came out, I'd say about a month before I filmed this very video that you're watching right now, there were people on the internet saying rude and nasty things about this guitar. There were people saying that this isn't a Jaguar at all. There were people even saying that this Jaguar is a better Jaguar for less money. Of course, I'm holding the Squier Classic Vibe 1970s Jaguar. And as you can tell, I've got both of them, which means I can do some direct comparisons and we can find out once and for all if those rude and nasty people on the internet are correct or incorrect. Or maybe they're both. Maybe they're somewhere in between. Maybe there are cons and pros and cons to each one of these guitars. And maybe you're the one who should be making that decision instead of randoms on the internet who don't know what you want out of a guitar. I don't know either. I'm just going to show you what I can observe with these two. So anyways, let's get started. Let's get this up on a stand. Framing is very important, guys. You might think my job is guitar, but really my job is video. And right now I'm trying to find the exact right place to put this so you can see exactly what I'm talking about when I talk about why people say the Player 2 Jaguar isn't a real Jaguar or somehow less Jaguar than the Classic Vibe. Holding them side by side, you will notice there are things missing from the Player 2. First of all is the rhythm circuit. There is a whole chrome plate up there with controls on it that you don't have on the Player 2. In the on position, with this switch, what happens is the neck pickup gets isolated and run through a secondary set of pots that have different values than your standard pots down here. And those different values give you a darker, creamier, heavier, thicker, jazzier sort of tone. And you just don't have that here. But I'm going to show off later that maybe you don't need it because there's also a tone control on your Player 2 Jaguar, as well as other guitars. Another thing that is missing is this bank of 3 switches right here. All you have on the Player 2 is a 3-way blade switch like you'd find on a 2 pickup guitar like a Telecaster. That only gives you 3 different possible pickup settings, where with this, combined with this, you actually have 8 different possible settings, including all the way off, which is a silly setting to have. Although people do like to use this as a kill switch sometimes. So here on this bank of switches, you have an on and off for your bridge pickup, an on and off for your neck pickup, and then a strangle switch, which is something that I do kind of wish this had. Although, and I'm going to show later, might not even be that big of a deal. Depending on what type of rig you're planning on running your guitar through. So anyways, the strangle switch pulls out mids and lows, leaving you with this hyper thin spaghetti western sort of sound. But again, depending very heavily on what type of rig you're running after the guitar. Pedal boards and stuff like that can actually change the way that behaves with your amp or your modeler or whatever you're doing to amplify or record your guitar. Results may vary is what I'm saying about that strangle switch. Another big difference between these two guitars is the placement of the trim. Looking at them, you'll notice that the trim on the Player 2 is much closer to the bridge. You have much more space in between the trim and the bridge on the Classic Vibe. This is the classic and vibey way to do this. It's the original way to do it. I have a made in Japan Jag over my shoulder over there on the wall, and it has this placement. That's the traditional way to do it. The reason they do the closer placement on the Player 2 and on other Jags over the years is to get a sharper break angle across the bridge saddles, reducing the chance of having a lot of buzz from your bridge, which is the sort of thing people are fixing when they shim their neck. They angle the neck back so that they can raise the bridge, which will increase the break angle across those saddles. So because this is closer, there's less of a need, less of a chance that you're going to need to shim the neck. But that's all personal preference. You might like the buzzy, rattly nature of an original style, a classic style, a vibe style Jaguar offset loadout. You might not. It's all subjective. To my ear, to my playing, the only thing that I've noticed difference in the performance of these two guitars as far as the trim goes with that distance is the sound that's made when you play behind the bridge. That might be a huge issue for a lot of you, which is totally fine. Buy the guitar that suits your needs. Other than that, there are different pickups here. They're both stocked with Jaguar style pickups with the correct metal claw and whatnot. You're gonna hear later that these pickups, to my ear and probably to your ear, they sound fuller in a way. You'd expect a cheaper guitar to sound thinner, right? But these actually are darker, but also muddier, in my opinion. These pickups seem to be super duper like hi-fi clear sounding. I think something I really like about this guitar and something that's causing me to bond to it in an interesting way is that it feels more open to me. It feels like the window's open and there's a slight refreshing spring breeze coming through the window, where this feels more like a house that's been closed up a while. The air is a little bit stale with this guitar, using air metaphors very heavily here, but the pickups do sound different. Squier lists these as just Alnico pickups. They don't call out which type of Alnico. They call out these pickups as Alnico 5 in the bridge and Alnico 2 in the neck. So no idea which number of Alnico they're using in these, but they do sound different. Also, these two guitars sound different acoustically. To my ear anyways. Or maybe it's a feel difference. Yeah, this one sounds warmer to me, where this one sounds clearer, a little brighter, a little twangier. And that's either going to be a difference in materials, I'm assuming. Maybe it's a difference in the thickness of the finish on the body. Maybe it's a difference in the woods. It might even be a difference in the type of metal that is used in the bridge and the trim, etc. Maybe it's even the nut. I don't know. It could be all those things working together, but there is a slightly different feel and sound there acoustically to my ear. Let's get into some quality control things. So far, I haven't found any QC issues from this guitar. It's twice the price. These are like $825, I think. Let me check. $829.99, and the Squier is $459.99. So functionally, this is twice the price of that, and this is half the price of this. So yeah, the QC issues should be pretty different. Like I said, I haven't found anything yet with this guitar. It's really well put together. It came set up really nice out of the box. I did change the strings because I have personal preferences. Both these guitars have the same style set of strings on them right now. Stringjoy Orbiters, 10.5, like I've been putting on everything. They are coated strings. The strings on here are actually probably like 2 weeks newer than the strings on here, and I've played these a lot more. You'd think that would lend to this sounding duller, but I think the strings are actually holding up very well. They're a coated string. That's what they're supposed to do. So QC issues on the Squier. There are some. There are physical differences as well. Nothing is a deal breaker, in my opinion. The first thing that I noticed is that there is polishing compound down in the grain of the fretboard. I'm sure that'll come out eventually with playing. I wiped this down with some hydration oil from my D'Addario kit, and it still left quite a bit in there. The frets themselves, they're murkier. They're not as shiny. They're not as well dressed as the Player 2. Surprisingly, this has a real bone nut, according to Fender, where this has a synthetic bone nut up here. I've noticed less tuning stability with the Squier I can address that myself, but it's a setup thing from the factory. This wasn't intended to have this gauge of strings. It was set up to have 9s on it, so that might be part of the issue, but it was the same thing with this. I think I just need to open up the saddles a little bit and get some lube in there. They say that the tuners on here are extra special, fancy, some sort of modern, whoops, bumped my mic, some sort of modern reinvention of the split top vintage tuner. I don't know anything about that. I don't know if that's contributing to the tuning stability. Something I've noticed is that the edge right here on the guitar, this is so minor. This is something only a nitpicker would notice. But on the Squier, it's sharp right here, where it's smooth on the Player 2. That's just a difference of, who knows, like 5 or 10 minutes with a human being with a piece of sandpaper smoothing out the edges, where this probably just got pooped out of a machine and whatever sharp edges are there, and they put thick paint on it to cover all that sort of stuff up, but you can still tell that it's not very well rounded around that edge. What else? Out of the box, there was a little bit of a clunk to the trim on this. I've been able to work it out with heavy use, but I will say that the trim feels a lot stiffer, clunkier, not as smooth as the Player 2. I mean, all that sort of stuff, people are always swapping out parts on Fender offsets. There's untold amounts of aftermarket parts out there for these guitars. If I made this my go-to Jag, I would probably swap out this trim eventually, or open it up and make some modifications to make it a little bit more pleasurable to use. It's not bad. It's definitely not the worst offset trim I've found on a cheap guitar. And it's actually like no droopy wiggle stick. It's in there nice and firm, so that's nice. But yeah, it just doesn't feel as nice in comparison. Anything else? I mean, all that stuff is pretty minor. Oh, here's another minor issue that I found. Whoever put this together, they accidentally put in the Jaguar pickup claw backwards on the bridge pickup. There's actually 2 smaller posts on the claws that are supposed to go under your bass strings, under your low E and A, and it's flipped around, so it's under the high E and B. Small issue, but there are issues that I found on this guitar versus this guitar, where so far I really haven't found anything on this, but they're all fixable. I mean, except for that, it's easy to ignore. Though that little, extra edge right there that just isn't as hand sanded as it could be. So let's plug them in and do some audio comparisons. Maybe I should leave, I should leave this guy up. Leave them both in frame. Like always, I'm going to be running into the 2 Princeton's rig. And I've got a pedal board on the floor. I have my surfboard. I'll flash a picture of that up there so you can see what I'm using today. I'm going to be turning on things. I'm going to be turning off things. I'll let you know what I'm doing as I'm doing it. But let's start off with the guitar in the bridge position. Something I like about the pickup selection in the Player 2 is that the bridge pickup with that Alnico 5 magnet is actually kind of landing in the territory where I'd want a Strangle switch to land. It's already really bright and thin, especially in comparison to the darker sounding pickups from the Squier here. Gotta adjust my recorder here. Let's try that with some reverb from the Surfy Bear. Come on. Here we go. Let's do that with the Squier now. I'm gonna be wearing out my cable here today, switching back and forth. So bridge position, no strangle, no rhythm circuit. What I will say about these pickups though, is they've got more punch. They've got more output. They really, really kick. You might like that more, you might like that less. I don't know. Personally, oops, forgot to put this back. Let's get this other stand out of here so I don't make that mistake again. Personally, I find that I enjoy the lower output, or kind of like vintage sort of sounds. The clarity I get, that open window, fresh breeze sort of feel I get from the pickups in the Player 2. These have more kick, they've got more punch, they have more of a honk to them. I want that more crystalline sort of open sort of sound. Or maybe I just prefer it. Maybe I don't want it. It's just what I like. I don't know. I'm still wrestle with this. And I go back in between this and my Made in Japan Jaguar as well. And that thing sounds great too. Different guitars sound different sometimes. So on to the middle position. Here's the bridge again. Should I do it without the reverb? Here's the middle. We get that kind of spanky, quacky sort of sound in the middle. Yeah, more punch, but more mud, more of that kind of like mid-bark that it's not as clear, it's not as defined, but you might prefer that. You might like that. Kind of darker sound. On to the neck pickup. Yeah, quite a bit murkier on the Squier. More clarity, but also less output from that Alnico 2 neck pickup on the Player 2. It might really just come down to output. More output means you're getting more of everything, right? You're getting more lows, you're getting more mids, you're getting more highs. Although I feel like you're not getting as many highs. I don't know. I'm not a pickup scientist, guys. If you're a pickup scientist out there in the audience, write a dissertation in the comment section if you want to, like paragraphs and paragraphs. Lay it all out there, man. Juice my analytics. Get all the keywords in there. Let's have some more fun with reverb. And bridge position. So now let's show off everything that the classic vibe has that the Player 2 is missing. Starting with that rhythm circuit. Let's start on the neck so we can compare the regular neck setting down here to the rhythm circuit setting. So here it is down here, no rhythm circuit engaged. Everything is wide open there. Here is the rhythm circuit. Let's try it with some drive from my 50/50 pedal. Is this stuff wide open? Yep. Rhythm circuit off. Now I find you can get most of the way there to this. That's the rhythm circuit. Here it is off. By rolling the tone back about halfway. It's not exactly the same. Let's do it without the drive. Here we go. Tone wide open, no rhythm circuit. Rhythm circuit. Rhythm circuit off. Tone rolled back about halfway. It's not exactly the same. It doesn't have quite the same oomph to it. I guess I can do it like this. That was the rhythm circuit. Here is the regular circuit with the tone rolled back. Yeah, it doesn't have that same kind of like high mid punch. It's got a little bit of a punch to the gut in the rhythm circuit. But it gets you most of the way there. Let's see if I can match that rhythm circuit on the Player 2 by just rolling back the volume. Not the volume, the tone. Roll it back about the same. Yeah, sounds about all right. Let's try it with the drive and the reverb. Here it is with the tone rolled back with the regular circuit. Let's go back. It is slightly different, but unless I was using the rhythm circuit as a kill switch or as a way to pull back volume to have a finely dialed in second setting, just that tone difference, I don't feel like I'm missing it. If I can just roll the tone back to get me pretty much most of the way there, like split the difference against the pickups sounding different, right? To me, that functionality isn't missed quite as much as the Strangle switch. So let's get into that. Let's do the Strangle switch, and I'm gonna show you something that's either gonna make you stoked and make you only want to have guitars with Strangle switches, or it's gonna make you go like, I don't really care. So here we are dry. That's just the bridge pickup. Here it is with the Strangle. Strangle off. You can hear a slight difference there, right? Let's do it on the neck pickup. That's without the Strangle. Here it is with. Let's try it with some like chuggy chord. Here it is. Okay, good. Had to check the tone control to make sure it was wide open. Here it is with the Strangle off. Strangle back on. Running through my pedal board, it's a subtle difference. Yeah, there's some mids missing. There's a little bit of lows missing. But watch what happens when I unplug the guitar and plug it direct into my splitter, which is after the pedal board going into the two Princetons. Here it is without the Strangle switch. You can also hear that the amps without the pedal board in front of it, all the buffers and everything is doing different things. The amps actually sound darker with my pedal boards out of the mix. Which gives you a contrast when you flick on that Strangle switch. World of difference. Let's do a wet-dry mix with reverb from my Black Princeton. Try it with both pickups and the Strangle. Just the bridge. And back to the neck. And then Strangle out. Strangle back on. So the point I'm trying to make is that if you're running through a pedal board versus a more traditional running straight into an amp situation, that Strangle switch might not be the deal breaker that you think it is. Also, you might be able to simulate it with like a little EQ pedal or something like that. Like one of these little guys. You could probably do something similar on your pedal board with an EQ pedal. Just saying, something to think about when you're getting all high and mighty looking at these two guitars and saying that this just is not a Jaguar. It's still a Jaguar to me. I'll say that. Now here's where I'm gonna get into some big opinion stuff. When it comes down to the discussion as to which guitar I prefer, it's a little bit tricky for me to pick this one because I already have my made in Japan Jaguar back there that scratches the traditional itch just fine, exceptionally well, honestly. Where the kind of like darker sounding pickups here, there's a bit of murk and mud going on. The higher output is fun, but it's not really what I look for in a Jaguar generally. I prefer that thinner, twangier, clearer sort of sound. Like this is like the metaphor, the analogy in my head is that this sounds and feels like a breath of fresh air, like a nice summer breeze, a cool summer breeze coming through an open window, where this is more like stale air in a room where all the windows have been closed up a bit. It's still a lot of fun. Like this is a fun guitar, and I definitely don't want to talk anyone out of buying Squiers or classic vibe Squiers because they're excellent guitars. They're fantastic. Are you kidding me? I wish stuff like this existed at a relative price point when I was a teenager. Oh my gosh, I would have loved to have one of these. It was like to find a Jaguar in the 90s was not as easy as it is now. But having both of these around the house, I can say with certainty, I grab this one way more often. I just do. I enjoy playing it more. I think I prefer not only the thinner feeling finish of the body, the more, like well done finish of the body where the body itself is better rounded and it feels like it's not as much of a thing that a machine popped out. But I prefer this thin satin finish on the neck between the two. Now I have like a heavy candy finish on the Japanese Jag that I have hanging back there. And I love that neck. It's a different feeling neck. It's got that very thin and round feel at the nut, where this has this very standard made in Mexico style Fender neck, which weirdly like I'm kind of in love with. Before all this, before having a demo channel and having way too many guitars and other pieces of guitar gear in my life, I was a guy who owned like 6 guitars. One of them was acoustic. I am the target market for Mexican Fenders. I've owned so many Mexican Fenders over my lifetime because they're in my price point. So this style of neck, the way that it's cut, the carve of it, that modern seat feel, it feels like coming home to me. Like this is a very comfortable guitar for me. It might not be for you, but for me, like this feels like I've been here so many times before, and it's so easy for me to pick it up and be comfortable. You've got a fuller and rounder feeling neck with a Squier. You got that thicker kind of gloss finish on there. And I just don't find myself bonding with it as much. I'm also weirdly like not as into binding. And I know the 60s Jag from the Classic Vibe series doesn't have the binding. So I might even prefer one of those. But yeah, there's less of a pleasure factor with the Classic Vibe versus the Player 2. Now that's all subjective. You can disagree with that till you're blue in the face, and I won't tell you you're wrong, because that's you. That's your hands. That's your body. That's your ears. That's what you like to hear. That's what you like to feel. Pick the one that you want. You can also make the case that you can mod both of these. Do whatever you want. Yeah, this one doesn't have the routing to be modded to this easily. But if you have a router, if you have a chisel, if you have a drill, you could make it happen. It might be sloppy, but you could make it happen. It might be extremely clean if you buy the templates, or you're very handy with a router, or very handy in the wood shop. You could do it. You could route this to be modded into this if you wanted to, but that's not what we're talking about here, is it? We're talking about stock guitars as they came from the factory. You know, remove the fact that I changed the strings on both of them. They have a matching set of strings, but you get what I'm saying, right? And to say that, to land on that note, one of the reasons I wanted to make this video is because I'm really, really, really itching to modify this one. I'm not going to modify it to be traditional. I'm going to do my own thing. I'm going to start with cosmetic mods first. But yeah, I keep saying that I really enjoy this guitar. And there's two reasons, in my opinion, to mod a guitar. The first reason is that you don't like it. And you want to make it more likable. You want to make it something that you enjoy. The second reason is that you love it and you want to personalize it. And that's where I am with this. I love it and I want to personalize it. So what do you guys think? I'm putting it down. I should still hold it. What do you think? Is the omission of a rhythm circuit and the Strangle switch an absolute deal breaker for you? Are you running direct into an amp so you can really, really hear that Strangle switch? Do you truly believe that the rhythm circuit is so much more special than just rolling the tone back like I did, which is totally fine. Like, I love using the rhythm circuit on my traditional Jags, on my Jazz Masters. I love the rhythm circuit, but if I'm honest with myself, I know that I can get most of the way there with the tone control. So where are you guys now after watching this video? What are you thinking? Debate it down in the comment section. I think I'm gonna lay down a little loop and just have some fun. I'm looking forward to reading what all of you have to say though. So as I set up this jam, just know that I'm thankful that you watched, that you made it to the end. If you could, please like, subscribe, dislike, leave me rude, nasty comments, support us on Patreon, buy a shirt if you're naked, and stay grounded.